Okay, well, I am really, really thrilled, and we feel very privileged to have Gavin Calver with us this morning. And before we get to sort of think about your content and some of the stuff you're sharing, it'd be great to get to know you a little bit and just draw out a few things from your own journey. So maybe just before anything else, it'd be good to hear about you and your family initially. So can you just give us headlines in terms of your family, etc.?
Yeah. I've been married to a surprisingly beautiful wife for 20 years, Anne. We've got two kids, Emily and Daniel, 14 and 11. And we have had a great time together and a lot of fun, trying to relentlessly pursue Jesus together, and also on the side supporting AFC Wimbledon.
Someone has to. So, yes. You now are leading EA as a whole, carrying all sorts of responsibility, but it would be brilliant to hear a bit more, go back and hear how faith first became real for you, and maybe what some of the key things on your journey initially of faith.
Yeah, I mean, I've grown up in the Christian mafia, if I'm honest. I'm the seventh generation called Reverend in my family. And so you've grown up around Christian leaders. You know, if anyone's got any good ideas, help me out. Because my old man started Spring Harvest and my granddad started Tear Fund. So I need a good idea. But basically, I grew up in this Christian family where the expectation was that you would be incredibly well behaved, unbelievably godly, that you'd be having prophetic words at the age of 5. And, you know, it was a bit much, really. And so I wasn't interested in the faith stuff. I didn't doubt Jesus. I'd seen all kinds of things. I don't want to be flippant. I'd seen all kinds of healings and stuff. Jesus was real. I just wasn't that interested. He was like an auntie figure, someone I knew existed, but I wasn't that keen to hang out with, if I was honest. I had 3 siblings. They didn't sin. They were absolutely perfect. They did everything right and they were wonderful. And that made me worse. And so throughout my teenage years, I kind of threw myself at football. I tried to become a footballer. I wasn't as far away as you'd think, but I wasn't as close as I'd like to think. But, you know, I played with a couple of guys, went on to play for England, but I threw my life into football. That's what I did. And at 14, I got banned from church. I got banned for 6 months. I remember at the time thinking, I can't believe my mum can't make me go now. You know,
so what did you get banned for?
Well, let's say consistent bad behaviour. But I was banned at 14 and I didn't go back for years. And my best friend, who I got banned with, has not been back since. And that's the tragedy of it. You know, sometimes in youth ministry, stick with the difficult kids. Don't just stick with the ones that are good. And over the next few years, I had no interest in Jesus, really. But I kind of just wasn't that bad either. I was throwing myself into sport, having a go. Then when I was 17, my mum and dad moved to the other side of the world to run the American equivalent of Tear Fund. And I remember my dad taking me out to talk to me about this. And I said to him, not as politely as this, I said, if a loving God splits our family up, he can stuff himself. I won't spend another day pretending to be a Christian. My parents emigrated. And so I was 17 and I was like, what am I doing? And for the next sort of 6 to 9 months of my life, I did a few things I wish I hadn't done. And then the day after my 18th birthday party, I won't go into great detail because we shouldn't glorify these things, but on my 18th birthday party, I definitely had too much of the old drink, let's say. And during the night, my best friend, who's the guy I was banned from church with, woke up a couple of times and cleared some vomit out of my mouth. It was quite close. I was in a really bad way. And I woke up the next day and I went and sat on a park bench in Forest Hill in South London. And I surrendered my life to Jesus. Now, people would say, well, what was the talk? What was the worship? Who did that with? No, it was me. I was on a park bench. And I just realized that I tried these other things and they just didn't match up. And this Jesus was real. And I'm an all or nothing person, right? All passion, all life, energy. No, I could never do half-hearted Christianity. I didn't understand it. So I was like, no, I'm ready. I'm all in. I'm absolutely. So I was never a baby Christian, you know, because I knew the stuff, but it's just, am I in or not? I was all in. Yeah. Then I prayed a really stupid prayer with hindsight because it's caused me some problems. I said, Lord, I will go wherever, whenever, and into whatever you have for me. That was the most dangerous prayer I've ever prayed. And within a year, I was at Bible college training for ministry. So it's been quite an adventure.
Wow. All in very quickly then. And probably then fairly quickly, there was some leadership about you, I guess, and you're beginning to step. Can you just tell us what your first steps of leadership looked like and how you began to find your way as a leader?
Yeah, they were before I became a Christian. I've captained every football team I've ever played for. And I'm a goalkeeper. So there was something, and I captained the school rugby team and the school cricket team. And, you know, there was just something, if I didn't realise, until it was redeemed, I didn't realise it was leadership. So I had this thing as a young person where if I had a really stupid idea, a bunch of other people would come and do it with me. And you didn't realize actually that just needs redeeming for the kingdom. And some of the rebelliousness in me as a teenager was actually leadership, because other people would end up doing what you were doing. It just needed to be surrendered to Jesus. I'd always been in kind of leadership roles, just not for the kingdom. Then when I was at Bible college, I remember this older guy in the third year saying to me, "You've got so much leadership on you, but everyone just thinks that you're a bit of a wide boy." He says, what we need to realize is you need to harness what you have in order to use it for God's kingdom. And so then I did a couple of things in roles in churches at that point, served a couple of churches. But then we went to Youth for Christ. My wife and I got married after Bible college. We met there like you do. Went to Youth for Christ for 14 years and led the gap year program there. I did 7 jobs at Youth for Christ, culminating and leading it before leaving there 6 years ago to come to EA. But when I came to EA, I came as director of evangelism and mission, not as the head. Because one of the things I don't want people to think about leadership is not about being the number one all the time. We always look at the sort of CEO or the senior minister. If you have influence, you're a leader. And actually, some of my most effective leadership has not always been in the number one position. But I think, you say leaders aren't born, they're made. I think some people are born to influence others to some level. And I think I had that for bad. And I've been able to offer that to the Lord, and he's redeemed it. And I'm grateful for that.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So, I mean, you'll have obviously now had lots of different experiences in leadership. It'd be great just to hear from, whatever seems appropriate from your perspective, just any particular lessons. What have been some of the key lessons you've learned on your leadership journey, do you think?
There's 2 or 3 things probably. One is you're not actually as gifted as you think you are. Now, other people might have the opposite problem. But, when I learned to minister out of brokenness, and I'll share some of that in the session. When I learned to minister out of brokenness, I learned to actually lead. Before that, my biggest weakness was probably an unawareness of any weaknesses. So to learn your fragility and to learn your humanity, you can lead much better. Great leaders are vulnerable, not superior, in my view. Now, you're not sharing all your problems at every corner, but you're human. So the humanity of it has been important. And the second thing I've learned is it's all God in the end. When I first started preaching, I remember it. You first start preaching evangelistically, and one week no one became a Christian. Another week, loads of people became Christians. When no one became a Christian, people said, "Oh, a bit too much of you, Gav." When loads of people became a Christian, everyone said, "Oh, wasn't God good?" And you were like, "I'm losing every time." So when it goes well, God's done really well. When it goes badly, I've done badly. And I decided fairly early on in everything, I'm going to say, "Lord, this is down to you. I will lead, I will invite, I will do these things, but the fruit of it is down to you." And I think the other thing I've learned, and I continue to learn, is you never stop learning. I've got a number of mentors, and I change them regularly. And I sometimes get coaching as well. So occasionally I'll have a preaching coach for a while or something, but learn.
Yeah.
And because what I've realized as well is as soon as you get senior roles, people stop offering to teach you anything. So you have to choose to dig those wells.
Very good.
So I have never not had at least 2 mentors at any given time in my ministry. Still do. Want to learn. And the wisdom of age, right, I will say to, particularly as I know that a number of the leaders are younger here, the wisdom of age, do not underestimate it. Every generation, a generation comes through, blazes a trail and makes all the same mistakes as the previous generation because we didn't listen to the previous generation. Now, we're really going to see something amazing when the wisdom of age and the enthusiasm of youth come together. So one thing I've always done is in every church I've been part of, I've sought out the wise people the world's forgotten. Because there'll be some people, and when I was first doing this, it was people who'd fought in world wars and stuff. But, the people that, because we're funny in the church. We can be a bit ageist. You're too young to lead, and then you're too old to be useful. And actually, both of those are nonsense. And so what I'd encourage people to do is dig out some of the people who've done more laps of the track, because then you don't make the mistakes they made. You can make your own.
That's fantastic. Love it. Okay, so we've obviously gone through quite a season, and everyone's got their own view on just sort of what that looks like and what that implications are. It would be great just to hear something from you in terms of maybe, one season's coming to an end. I mean, it depends how you look at it, another season. But for us as a church, what would your main observations, reflections be about where we're at, what the opportunities are, what the challenges are at the moment?
Okay. Yeah, let's speak about right now, because the thing is we can go over the last 18 months. But for me, in my heart, I'm a youth worker, right? So we're in a new year. January's got nothing on September. This is a new year. So dust yourself down and move on from the previous chapter, crack on with the next. But I think in this exact moment we're in now, there's probably 2 or 3 things that are important. I think one is we've all been in the same storm, and you'll have heard this said many times, but we haven't been in the same boat. So we need to be, as leaders, treating people with compassion. We've had the same experience, but it's not been the same.
Yeah.
So, and the example of using that is when Jesus meets with Mary and Martha, who both lost Lazarus. One of them is overwhelmed in their heart, the other overwhelmed in their mind. One speaks all the time, one weeps. One's the practical person, one's the emotional person. They've been through exactly the same thing. But to Martha, Jesus answers her questions. To Mary, he just weeps with her. We've got to treat every person as an individual with the compassion they need in this season. We could be in danger of thinking that our experience is the same as everyone else. No one's had the same experience, even though we've been through the same thing. So the church has got to find reservoirs of compassion for people.
Very good.
I think another thing I'd say is 18 months ago, if you and I had a chat about online church, we'd have thought, oh, that's like cloud cuckoo land. Now it's fairly normal. We're all broadcasters now. So what do we do with that going forward? Especially younger leaders, because you're so technologically savvy. Now, people like you and I, we've had to learn how to do it, and it's kind of counterintuitive. But if you're younger leaders, you have the skills already. So what are we going to do going forward? In what way? Church used to be like a set menu. Nearly every church, 10:30, 6:30, nothing to do with Jesus, everything to do with milking cows. You used to milk the cows at 9, milk them at 5. It took half an hour to get the milk, half an hour to get clean, half an hour to get to church. Nothing sacred about it. But it was a set menu type. And people will tell me their churches are different. I travel the nation. Most church services are not that different. I think what's happened now is substance remains the same, but style's out the window. So replace your set menu with a buffet. Because plenty of people have been coming to your church in their pajamas. Are you going to cut them off now? You know, the new pre-alpha is online church. Find some evangelists to online. Let's change our formats. But don't get me wrong. I absolutely want to be in the building. I absolutely want to be. But not everyone does.
Yeah.
And so we have the moment and the skills to move forward stylistically. So compassion, style. Then the third thing I'd say is we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to share the gospel. I've been saying this throughout this pandemic, but even more coming out of it a bit. The nation is living with mortality salience. Mortality salience is an awareness of your brokenness, your fragility. One day I might die. It's normally reserved for a war zone. So in a war zone, you would think like that. We've been not in a war, we've been on our sofas. But every night on the news, excess deaths, excess deaths, excess deaths. Everyone around you is thinking about life and death. They weren't before. The world is asking the questions we answered for 30 years when they weren't asking them. There is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. We've only got 12 to 18 months, by the way. If we leave it too long, the nation gets back to normal, things recover. I wrote the foreword to a book on evangelical church history recently, and it covers the Second World War. We've got the best chance since the Second World War. After the Second World War, church attendance went up massively for 18 months. Then it went back down to pre-World War levels. Now, you look at that and you say, there was a moment, everyone was looking at life and death, everyone was asking questions, but that moment doesn't last. So what I would say to everyone is, whether you consider yourself an evangelist or not, you are a witness, because every Christian's a witness or an imposter. So we're witnesses. Do not miss this moment when all around you are asking questions. I've been an evangelist for 20 years, and it's never been as easy as it is right now. And it will go back to normal. Yeah. So do not miss this moment. And the church needs to reconstitute itself to serve the least and the last and the lost in this season, because we have a moment. We've been crying out for a moment. Culture has thrown us a moment. What we do with it is down to us.
Yeah. Wow. Lots of fantastic stuff there, Gavin. Thank you so much. Brilliant just to get a quick window into both your life and also some of your reflections, very pertinent. And in a minute, we're going to go into some mentor groups, or actually not our mentor groups, but just some groups to be able to talk about just maybe what are some of the standout things that Gavin's talked about. I think there's a whole lot of stuff there that we could just grab and just be able to process together. But thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to your input, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share with us, Gavin. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.